Hello, I am Dale from
Hey Dale,
Dale's
good
Gig
to see you.
Review and Metallica Online Magazine. I'm not flustered at all. Um, you've got a single out, Not Dead Yet, and it makes perfect sense because I believe that you're suffering with Parkinson's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I'd
that's
like
the
to talk
basic.
to you about that because it's quite relevant in my own life. Because I had a friend who were a bass guitarist in several heavy metal bands from the UK, and he had Parkinson's as well. And also, I recently interviewed the Saxon guitarist Graham Oliver, who's also suffering with Parkinson's. And um, so, could you tell me about your diagnosis, how you found out, and how is it affecting you?
Well, it was about 5 years ago that I started getting some tremors and shaking in my right arm and right hand. And I didn't know what was going on, but I finally got myself to I'm a bit of a procrastinator when it comes to medical stuff. I don't like going to the doctor unless I absolutely have to. So it was probably a
Yeah,
couple of months. And in the meantime, before I got to the neurologist, I knew something was wrong, and I do what all of us do now. We use the internet as sort of a medical library, and I started symptoms and started doing a little bit of digging. So by the time I got to the neurologist, I basically knew what was going on. I had a
yeah,
good idea, but the neurologist basically told me I was in early stages of Parkinson's, and then uh, I got an MRI and a DAT scan on my brain, and that basically confirmed it. And so this was about 5 years ago. So the new the new single track that I've just released and the video, Not Dead Yet, is basically was me. It started out as me telling my story about trying to stay positive and overcome adversity, or however you want to say it. But I realized that as I started fleshing out the song and got writing lyrics and taking some parts out, I realized that I didn't really want it to be about necessarily about me. I wanted it to be sort of an inspiration to help other people who are going through similar problems, whether it's an incurable progressive neurological disease like I have, Parkinson's, or whether it's the death of a loved one or a broken heart or uh, cancer or basically anything that you've adversity in your life, and basically about staying strong and staying positive.
yeah.
And in my career, it's kind of weird. I've never done anything like this. This is actually my first time ever singing. So there's a lot of new things going on in this, but in this track, this song, this new venture that I've got, my solo project. But I'm used to singing about, or not singing. I'm used to being in bands that are themes of science fiction and war and devastation and chaos. And then here I
Yeah.
come, here I come, writing this song about being positive and being trying to be uplifting. So it's kind of a different scenario for me, but uh, basically the old saying, life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So I'm basically trying to take a bad situation and turn it into something positive, which is my art, which is what I'm known for. So here we are.
Yeah. Well, that sort of stuff is quite inspirational. It's I'm going through stuff myself. I'm a disabled reviewer, and I've been going through stuff for 2 years, and it affects your mental health in a particular way when you can't do things that you were able to do. And I understand that Parkinson's, you're a guitarist, and it must have been like having the whole rug being pulled from underneath your feet, having that sort of news. And it's one thing Googling it, to actually hear it is a totally different thing. How's it actually affecting your ability to play?
Well, it has affected my ability to play. The most recent stuff that I had done were the albums, Wildestarr. I did 3 albums with my wife, London Wild, and my guitar playing was a bit more elaborate, operatic. I'm not sure really how you want to say it. It's kind of along the lines of, Judas Priest,
Yeah,
Queensryche, real intricate stuff. And uh, I've had to basically take things down a notch or two. So I'm playing. It's funny, we were talking about blues music. I've kind of gone retro with my soloing. It sounds kind of like um, I realized I could not play on that same level anymore, but it doesn't mean that I can't do something that's good or convincing. So the soloing on this track sounds probably a little more like classic Thin Lizzy or um, classic Ace Frehley off of Alive. It's probably a
yeah,
little more blues oriented and just a little more aggressive. Uh, so, but I just wanted to do something I felt comfortable with, and I felt that it was important to not just convey the message lyrically to the song, but to show. Um, I didn't want to. I didn't want to go into the studio and record really complicated solo and then not be able to sit here and play it live because I punched it in 25 times in the studio.
yeah,
I felt that was sort of defeating the whole process purpose of the song. This is who I am right now. I'm 64 with Parkinson's disease. There's no cure. I'm doing basically the best that I can, and this is the state of my ability. But I think if you listen to the song and you watch the video, uh, it still comes off really solid, and I'm happy with the way it turned out. And I think
yeah,
it was, even though the soloing might be a little simpler from what people are familiar with me in the past, I don't think that would necessarily mean it's worse or not as good. It's just different.
yeah, yeah. Well, as things happen, you do have to obviously change to fit your style, and it's nice that although you can do stuff in a studio, you're keeping true to what's actually happening in your real life because you want to. I get that you want to convey um, that truth out there on the stage. Is there like any plans to be taking this version of yourself on tour?
No, and the reason being is that I only have this one song. A lot of people have asked, well, is this a single from an upcoming album? No, this is basically a standalone song. I started working on this about a year and a half ago. And um, I just basically, I hate the word retired, but I'll use the word retired. I retired from touring. I used to do a lot of it in the 80s and the 90s. And I
Yeah,
really was not a big fan of being gone from home for long periods of time. And I'm older now. I've got a beautiful home that I live in Texas here with my wife, and I'm very kind of run a business from the home here. And uh, it would take. I've not completely shut the door on touring, but it would take a lot to get me to get on a plane again and go back to Europe or Japan or wherever like I used to do it. I'm very happy as a studio. In the old days, I couldn't wait to get on the road because I was a crazy maniac, and I wanted to travel around the world and I thrived off the chaos and the craziness of what that life was all about. But now, as I get older, I don't feel that same way anymore, and I'm very happy to just be doing studio work.
yeah,
And to be honest with you, uh, could I translate this live? That's a very good question. I I don't know. I only have one song right now. That's the track "Not Dead Yet."
Yeah.
Um, but it's a stressful environment playing live, and that is not really conducive to somebody with the disease that I have, to Parkinson's. It kind of uh, agitates or aggravates the symptoms of the tremors and stuff. So
Yeah.
um, if I even had a whole album worth of material that I was doing based around this, I still probably wouldn't. I still probably give you the same answer that I'm happy staying at home working on stuff. We did the video. My wife directed the video, and I've got that to project to get my message out across the internet. So I've not said no to touring again, but it's been a lot of years, and I always tell people, I'd probably want my own tour bus. I don't know. It's just I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm an older, boring guy now, just sitting at home working on music, playing with my dogs, and walking out in the forest. And it's I'm not the same guy I was 30 years ago, and I'm happy being an old boring dude right now, just trying to still make as much music as I can for as long as I can.
So I'd like to be an old boring dude, but because of everything that's going wrong with me, I just like to sit in the house and just hide away from the world. And my lady, she's the one that drags me out, kicking and screaming, doing things.
Yeah. Well, I've always told people that the 34-year-old Dave would find the 64-year-old Dave disgusting. He'd be disgusted with how boring and how dull my life is. But I find a certain comfort in peace, and I like we live we live on 4 acres here. I'm looking out the window. We basically live we have a really nice house in a forest, and
Yeah.
I think the younger Dave would not find this very appealing. But as the older I get, and I hear this from a lot of people who get older, I'm 64, is that peace and quiet becomes, the older you get, the more appealing it is, because
Yeah.
you've had enough of the chaos and the uncertainty and the craziness of my earlier life, that I find uh, I find living a very quiet, peaceful life to be a very positive thing. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't have said that 30 or 35 years ago.
I think I'm also quite the same. I definitely don't play my heavy metal as loud as what I used to.
Well, I don't listen to music a lot, but yeah, I think I've just toned down in a lot of ways. And a lot of people say, like, well, if it's too loud, you're too old. Well, you know what? I don't care. I am who I am. I am where I am, and I'm happy where I am. So that's really all that matters. I
Yeah.
still crank the stuff up in the car, and I'm going to the post office or whatever, going to the grocery store. I'll still crank stuff up, the classic stuff that I listen to. I still love
Yeah.
music,
Is it
but
just
just
the old stuff you listen to, or are you listening to anything new? Or
um I don't listen to a lot of music, to be honest with you. When I listen to music, it's basically music that I'm working on,
yeah,
is when I listen to music, when I'm creating. When I am in the car, driving around, I'll listen to stuff on this. And generally, I listen to the older stuff I grew up listening to: Kiss, Judas Priest, Thin Lizzy, UFO, Blue Oyster
yeah,
Cult. Just the classic stuff that I grew up. That was all those bands I just listed were an influence on me, and the Sabotage. That's the kind of stuff I listen to when I do listen to music. Generally, it tends to be the older stuff, and also
yeah,
stuff I grew up listening, because I grew up in the '60s and the '70s. So I like a lot of the older stuff uh, um, that necessarily wasn't like. I'm a huge Badfinger fan. I love Badfinger. Um, uh, Stuff like that from that I was listening to. before I actually started to play. So I love the older stuff. It just seems to me that's where I gravitate to.
So didn't you open for Kiss as well with your band, Paul Stanley and
We yeah, we played with that. Yeah, we played with Paul Stanley on his solo tour in
solos?
1989, which was
Yeah,
actually a very important show. I booked that show. We didn't make much money doing it, but it was in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I found out he was playing at the club that we usually play at, I called the club owners and I said, I got to get on this show, whatever it takes. So, but it was an important show in that there was a guy in the audience that night named Bob Zemsky, who was best friends with Jason Flom at Atlantic Records,
yeah.
who was running the metal department at Atlantic Records at the time. And Bob said to Jason, I just saw this. He's got this guy play, these guys play with Vicious Rumours. I saw these guys open for Paul Stanley and they're really amazing. So anyway, I hate the phrase to make a long story short, but to make a long story short, that's kind of how that was the trigger for us getting signed with Atlantic Records.
Oh wow.
Was based on that show that we did with Paul Stanley, because Bob Zemsky, who would end up becoming our manager, called Jason Flom at Atlantic and said, "Oh, these guys are amazing. You got to sign these guys." So that's how we ended up getting signed to Atlantic Records.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we got signed because we were a great band, but everybody who knows anything about the music business knows that there is a certain degree of being in the right place at the right time, and
Yeah.
it's not what you know, it's who you know. So yeah, one thing led to another. So we got signed on the basis of our talent and the important person being in the crowd that night. So that show with Paul Stanley, and got to meet him, and he was a really. I've met a lot of people in my career, and there've been some people who were just absolute jerks that make me want to just cringe when I think about meeting them. But Paul Stanley was a super great guy who
Yeah.
was very friendly, shook my hand and said, "Pleased to meet you, Dave." And it was uh, very positive experience that whole night. Yeah, it was great.
Wow.
It's great to meet your heroes, but
Yeah.
there's always that nervousness, because I hate to bring up names, but I met Brian Robertson when he was playing with Motorhead.
Wow.
And if you know the story about him playing with Motorhead, it didn't really go real well. And this was my old band before Vicious Rumors. We played with Motorhead in San Francisco, and I walked up to Brian. It was the worst experience. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll just say he wanted out of the band at that point, and he let everybody know about it that he met. So it was it's that's why I'm saying it's dangerous. There's a lot of people who say it's really dangerous to meet your heroes, because you just
Yeah.
never know what you're gonna what you're gonna see and experience. So
Yeah. I was lucky enough to meet one of my heroes last year, Paul Diano, from Iron Maiden,
yeah,
2 months before he died, and I did so many things about him that he could be awful, and because of what were happening to him physically, he could be, depending on the day, he could be a very angry person. And
yeah,
I met him, and you were absolutely lovely. And if it weren't for the fact we had a big queue of people all waiting to meet him, I think we would have chatted all night. It was
yeah.
just, it was just such a nice person. So I was really pleased about that, and I went away very happy that I got to meet him.
Yeah, that's great. It's great when you have a great experience like that and you walk away, and especially since he this was briefly before this happened, right soon before he passed away. So
Yeah,
you're lucky that you got. I never met him before, but yeah, he seemed like he was a real interesting character, and yeah, I had heard scary things about him. And you just never know when you're going to catch some of these people, whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day.
yeah,
But yeah, that's a great story that you got to that you got to meet him and it turned out really positive. So that's outstanding. I had
See, I'm,
another.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Go on.
Well, I met Ace Frehley, and he was not an asshole, but he was very. The funny thing was, he was doing a we. It was the same club that he was playing at with that Paul Stanley played at. This was, I think,
Yeah.
the next year, and he was doing a pro photo session backstage, and we knew the photographer, so we got me and my guitar player Mark McGee from Vicious Rumours. We went back there, and we actually talked to the photographer. We said, "Hey, can we get in here?" Because it's not like a selfie photo. This was a full on photo session, and so we kind of worked our way into the get some pictures taken with him, which looked amazing. But God, he was so freaking drunk, and he fell down on stage that night, and it was just painful to see. But
Oh
yeah,
no,
but he wasn't an asshole,
you were just
but
drunk.
he was very drunk, and it was kind of very, um, you know, it was seeing him fall down on stage. Luckily, he got clean and sober,
Yeah.
and he lived. Sad he passed away a few months ago, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Very.
he
Um,
he was a wild one, and he had a. It's sad to see him go.
yeah. See,
Yeah.
you were in Vicious Rumours 84 to 93, but then you went back again in 2005 to 2007. Was that like one of these big reunite tours, or
Well, no, not at all. It was. I was part of what's considered the classic lineup of Vicious Rumours with singer Carl Albert, Jeff Thorpe, Mark McGee on guitar, Larry Howe on drums, and me on bass. And Carl passed away in a car accident about a year and a half after I left the band. And
oh dear.
um, when Jeff approached me about doing this new album, um, we were trying to get the four surviving members of the band back together to do this album. And Mark decided he didn't want to do it. So it was just the three of us. We ended up getting Brad Gillis from Night Ranger because he was a local. We all knew him. He was a local guy there in the Bay Area, so we were all really good friends with him. So we got Brad Gillis to play and James Rivera from Hellstar. So I basically just did the record almost like a studio project. I kind of felt like the magic that I had known from the past really wasn't there, even though I'm not knocking the album. There's some great stuff on the album. It just was different for me. And I had gotten clean and sober about 6 months before doing that record. And I had started writing songs with London, my wife, and started my new career as a guitar player because I had started playing guitar and after years of playing bass. So after I recorded that Warball album, I basically just before the album was even out, I quit and said I don't want to do this anymore. And I started working on the stuff with my wife, which would end up becoming Wildestarr, and we recorded 3 albums together. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
So
needed to to follow my vision of what I really wanted to do, and I felt like I had kind of taken a step backward to do that album,
yeah,
and that's okay. I don't regret it, but I just wanted to move forward. And when I got clean and sober in 2005, part of my rehab was just hours and hours and hours teaching myself how to play guitar and playing guitar. So I really wanted to pursue that. So that's what I did. So
yeah. Well, that's where I know you most from is from Wildstar, and your wife has got a very good singer. And I remember, I think it would have been your second album which I discovered, and I found it really enjoyable. It must have been great performing with your wife.
yeah,
What was that
that's
like?
actually a Telltale Heart. The second album
Yeah,
was actually
that's the one.
that's actually my favorite of the three. I like all of
Yeah,
them, but that's something
yeah,
about that Telltale Heart album. It all came together, and everything is just was just awesome. But yeah, it's interesting working. Um, yeah, it was great that we were able to Well, backing up a little bit, it's hard for women in this business because it's
Yes.
99% male.
Yeah.
And so she had had problems throughout her life trying to be accepted as a woman in a man's world of heavy metal and wanted to sing. And it just, for whatever reasons, it just never really happened. And then when we started writing songs together, she said, "You don't have a problem with me?" I said, "No, not at all. I don't care. It's all about the talent to me. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, just
Yeah.
as long as you can do the job." And yeah, it is cool. We have this bond. We've been married for we've known each other for 38 years, and we've been married. We just had our 24th wedding anniversary. So
Congratulations.
it was cool to work on music with somebody who you have a lot in common with, and you're married and you're writing all these great ideas. Now it has it's like anything else. It has its downside too, because you have to remember to not um, like choose your words correctly when you're arguing about doing this, or I have an idea for this and that. So you got to remember when you walk out of the recording studio, you're still husband and wife. So it's not like I'm going to get in the car and drive home 30 miles away. I'm here. Here we are. So we had to keep all that in the check. So it made things a little interesting at times. We would argue uh, and have blow-ups just like anybody else when you're trying to perfect things. But I think it also made things better. So a little disagreement here and there, a little shouting here and there makes 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 it all okay. So
Makes it interesting.
what's that?
Makes it interesting. Makes life interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember it was the album, the artwork, but it was the picture of the band that struck me because I love female fronted singers. You know, and your wife, she was very striking on the picture with long white hair, and she looked absolutely stunning. So I thought, oh, I'll give this a listen, and like I say, I went and bought it and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of great stuff on that record. When I look back on those three albums, it's basically I've made a lot of albums in my career, and those three are the pinnacle of what. That's not saying what I'm doing now is not as important with this new track, Not Dead Yet, in the video. It's very important, but the stuff that I did with London in Wildestarr is basically uh, if I have to pick one band that I was in or one album, that's the favorite stuff of my career.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
album, Telltale Heart, in particular. The first album, Arrival, was really cool because wow, I'd only been playing guitar for a couple of years when we did that record, and boy, but you can't tell by listening to it. And then the third album, Beyond the Rain, yeah, it was just it was a very special uh, time of our life, and we uh, we really just created some, I think, amazing stuff together. And it's the favorite stuff of all the things I've ever done in my career is the things I
brilliant.
did with London Wild, my wife. Yeah.
So, what made you pick up the guitar in the first place then?
Well, it was basically I'd always played guitar a little bit in in my life, but I was one of these guys that every band I was in when I was younger, we couldn't find a bass player. Nobody wanted to play bass. Everybody wanted to play guitar, be a singer. So a couple years before I joined Vicious Rumours, I switched over from guitar to playing bass. And I wasn't really a very good guitar player. I just played guitar. But I thought it would open a lot of doors for me. And it did. And it did.
Yeah.
I had this great career with Vicious Rumours, did all these great albums and tours all over the world. It was a lot of fun. But when I got clean and sober, quit drinking in 2005, I just I had these ideas for songs, and I told my wife, I said, I'm just gonna. I use that as part of my rehab for getting off the booze and trying to stay focused. So instead of getting in trouble and creating chaos and mayhem in my life, I sat in my office every night and played the guitar and worked on songs. And that's part of how I didn't go to AA or get any kind of help for my substance abuse problems. I basically just one day said, I can't do this anymore or I'm going to die. That's basically what I did. I told myself, I looked in the mirror one day, I said, right now you need to make a decision. You're going to be dead by the end of the year, or you're going to get clean and sober. So the guitar was basically my savior, for lack of a better word, that helped me stay focused on writing songs and working up my guitar chops. So that's how I ended up being, a real guitar player. And I was in my early 40s at the time. So it was kind of a late in life to be making a change like that, because everybody knew me as the bass player
Yeah.
from Vicious Rumours or Chastain. And yeah, so here I am. And I think a lot of people thought, well, this is probably going to suck.
Yeah.
But you listen to those records, the proof's in the pudding. So, yeah.
Yeah. But for me, the early stuff, obviously, uh, vicious rumours. You're saying about the substance abuse and the drinking. It was all a big thing in the 80s. All the bands were doing it, and we hear all these wonderful, wild stories that we all laugh about with Ozzy and with Motley Crue and things like that. Is this the big thing that sort of ruined the band? Was it something that you were just doing, or the whole band, or
Well, the way Vicious Rumors kind of blew up was um, it's really hard for me to pinpoint. I was when I prior to me leaving the band, I got fired from the band. I remember the day. It was Jeff's birthday on November 11th, 1993, and I was going through a really bad turmoil in my marriage at the time to my now ex-wife, um, and going through a really painful divorce, and it affected everything going on in my life. And the guys said they were going to stick with me and help me through this, and I felt really relieved. And then a couple of weeks later, they fired me from the band, and I was just
wow?
devastated. And
I
there
bet
was
you
a
were.
lot of drinking and drugs and stupid stuff that was going on. And the singer died a year and a half after I left the band in somewhat of an unexplained car accident that may or may
Yeah,
not have been drug related. I don't know. So there was bad things that there was a lot of great things about that band, but it really ended badly for a lot of reasons. In a span of 18 months, I left, Mark left, and then Carl died. So that was three people from the classic lineup of the band that were gone, and one of them gone forever.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm glad it lasted 9 years. I I don't like. It was very painful the way it ended for me, but I sometimes it's not easy for me to look past that devastating departure. But we did make some great albums and
yeah,
a lot of great memories. So um, I try to focus on that. Although sometimes
yeah,
it's easier said than done. Sometimes
yeah,
there's an old saying that wounds, time heals all wounds, but the scars remain. And there's definitely
yes,
some scars from that period of my life that remain that will be there forever.
yeah. I bet you did some incredible festivals and tours, and
Yeah, things that stand out was the Dynamo Open Air Festival in Holland in 1990, I think. God, I can't believe how long ago it's been. Um, that was a pretty big outdoor festival. The shows in Japan were really great. We recorded a live album in Tokyo in 90.
Mm.
Geez, was that 90? I think it was 92. Uh, the tour with Sabotage that we did in 1991 across Europe was amazing. Every night, packed, sold out, great double bill. There was this, you know, we were getting really popular. We were on Atlantic Records, and people were coming to see both bands. It was sort of a dual headline, co-headlining.
Yes.
It wasn't really like we were an opening band because we were on kind of the same level, maybe just a hair underneath them at the time. But people were coming to see both bands. Sometimes there'll be a headliner and an opener that a lot of people maybe don't care about, or they'll come late because they're only coming to see the headliner. No, everybody came to see both of those bands on that tour, and it was. I think of that as definitely a highlight of that time of my life. And it was really sad because shortly thereafter, about a year later, Chris Oliva was killed in that car accident. So it
Yeah.
was it was great to get to know him before he, tragically was killed by a drunk driver. He was amazing talent and a really really nice guy, and I'm glad to have gotten to know him and call him a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me more about your other band, Chastain. I don't really know much about that band.
David Chastain is sort of this underground neoclassical guitar shred guy, although I hate that term shred. He's got an extensive discography out under Chastain, David Chastain, a couple other bands that he's done. And he's not as well known as some of the other people that I've worked with, like Vinnie Moore, Brad Gillis, or some of these other people like Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen, obviously. But he's in that same genre. He's in that same genre of really incredible neoclassical players. He's probably not as popular because he's kind of like me. He didn't like touring, so he quit touring years ago. So I think when you don't get out there as much, it kind of hurts your visibility. But I did. He hired me to do an album, In an Outrage, that came out in 2004, I believe. So yeah, that was that was my first time doing an album that was all done remotely. He was in Georgia and I was back in California, and we sent files back and forth. So I'd never recorded an album like that before, so that was kind of neat. So I didn't get I the only time I met David was when he flew out to California to do the video for the track Bullet from a Gun, and that's the only time I have met him. But he was a super guy to work with. He was really neat. Um, he's probably a lot of people know him, and the singer who was with him for years, named Leather Leone, is now singing, touring on her own in Europe and South America, and she's singing a lot of the songs from Chastain.
Yeah.
But she's got her solo band because David doesn't want to tour anymore. So he just told her, he said, "Hey, go tour, go do the Chastain songs, knock yourself out." So if you ever see promos for Leather on tour, that's she was the singer in Chastain. Yeah.
Right. I have to look out for that then. It's funny because just seeing the word Chastain, it didn't ring any bells. But when you said David Chastain, it was like light bulbs. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check out some of that music that she's touring with. I think I'll
Yeah.
probably enjoy that. You and your wife, you have a guitar systems business. Do you still do that?
Yeah. I've been doing guitar repair work for 40 some odd years. And 10 years
Wow.
ago, I strictly just went into this electronic business. So it's called Star Guitar Systems, and I build wiring harness upgrades for guitar and bass. So if you got a nice, say, Gibson Les Paul, and the pots and the switches and everything are starting to wear out, I have brand new systems that basically drop in
Yeah.
And I build everything by hand, and my workshop is down the hall here in our house. My wife runs the shipping department, and basically it's kind of what we call a mom and pop thing. And I've been doing this for 10 years now. The only thing about guitar prayer that I really had a passion for was electronics. So I didn't really care for doing woodwork or frets or a lot of these other things that I found monotonous. But electronics always had I was always interested in. So, yeah, I started this business about 10 years ago, and it was slow at first, but it really took off. I'm in the next couple of weeks, I will have built my 10,000th wiring harness.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
because
brilliant.
everyone has a serial number on it, and I signed the
Yeah.
back of it with a serial number. So we're almost we'll hit 10 grand uh, uh, probably by the end of the year. So it's and I've got customers all over the world. It's pretty cool. It's nice to do something that you enjoy doing. Uh, I do it's mainly entails a lot of soldering. So if I have the problems with my tremors from Parkinson's in my right hand, I'm kind of ambidextrous where I can solder with my left hand and there's no problem with it. So it hasn't really affected my business. So I'm thankful for that and thankful for all the customers that I've got. It's been a pretty great experience. Uh, yeah, so it's running a business from home. It's nice to be your own boss and do your own thing and make a good, comfortable living doing it. So yeah,
Yeah. That's brilliant. 10,000 guitars. That is impressive.
yeah.
Um, my lady will probably say that behind every great man, there's an even better woman. You know,
True.
she says that. I'm not sure whether I totally agree with her on that one. She sat opposite me laughing.
Well,
But
I
she
think
does.
especially when adversity hits, it's nice to be. Some guys like being single. I like
Yeah,
being married, and my wife and I have been together a long time. And when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, she's kind of been the rock right there beside me, and it works both ways. She had a stroke last year, about a year and a half ago, and just had a pacemaker installed about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So, we're there for each other, and
yeah,
I think behind every man is a great lady, and behind every great lady is a great husband, and that's we're here for each other. And as you get older, you start having all these health problems and things
yeah,
falling apart, and it's great to have somebody that's I don't know if I was living alone how I could deal with this stuff that I got to deal with on a day in and day basis. It's great to have somebody to share your life with and grow old with. I mean, I know that sounds really kind of sappy, but it's true. It's true.
yeah. My saying is a little bit different. Behind every great man, there's a great woman, and behind every great woman, there's a man who worships her.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there
Well, there's
you
some
go.
different variations of that, but that's true.
Yeah. See, when I first met my lady, I used to tell her that I was a catch, and now I'm falling to pieces. She says that she ought to throw me back.
Nah, sounds like she's sticking by you. What are
Yeah.
what are the you said you were disabled? What are the problems that
Um, just
if you don't?
knackered joints falling to pieces. You know,
Yeah.
not taking care of myself when I used to do manual work, and it's all come to bite me in the behind.
Yeah. Well, then hopefully if in some way not, the not dead yet song in the video maybe can inspire you because it's inspired a lot of other people out there. I've got a friend of mine who had a stroke and he's paralyzed on one half of his body. He can't use his, I don't
Yeah,
remember if it's right or left, but he can't use his leg and his on his arm. And he saw the video and read the lyrics, and it really made a profound impact on him. And
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to do with this track is, to reach out and say, hey, we've all got problems, but as long as we can get up every morning and fight the good fight and do the best that we can, and
Yeah.
life is worth living. And there's always somebody out there who's got things worse than we do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
My my lady gives me a final question to ask everybody, and the final question I need to ask you is: tell me something about you we don't know.
About me that you don't know. Well,
Mm.
growing up, my father was a career U.S. Navy officer, and he was in the Navy for 32 years, from
Wow.
1945, World War II, tail end of World War II, 1945 to 1977. And when I was growing up, and he was stationed all over the world. So my sister and I were actually born in Japan and lived there twice. But before I got the rock and roll bug, a friend of mine loaned me Kiss Alive back in 75 or 76 and said, you got to check these guys out. And that changed the whole trajectory of my life. But what I'm leading up to is something that people don't know. Most people don't know is I actually wanted to go into the Navy and be a Navy officer. My dad was kind of my hero when I was growing up, and and that makes a very profound impact, or at least it did on me as a young boy, seeing my dad with this brilliant uniform on with all of his medals and ribbons and his high rank. And it seemed to me like he was 7 feet tall.
Yeah,
Uh,
I get
and
that.
yeah, and so if it wasn't for music, I would have probably gone into the military. I wanted to go into the Navy for the first 15 or 16 years of my life. And
Yeah,
so that's something that people don't know about me. And there's always that part of me that kind of I regret is they say regret is expensive, but yeah, I kind of wish that I would have done it at least for a short term hook up here in the U.S. You can go into the Navy for minimum of 4 years, and
yeah,
sometimes there's a part of me that wishes I would have at least done that and then pursued my dreams of music. But it's too late to change that now. But yeah, that's a story that a lot of people don't know is that I really had planned on going into the Navy and
yeah.
following the footsteps of my father until this friend gave me Kiss Alive, and my dad said it ruined my life. It
See,
changed I tell everybody Kiss Alive changed my life. My dad said it
that's
destroyed
it,
my
ruined
life.
it.
So yeah.
See,
What
I've
are you
got a
gonna?
very similar story because I was an army brat. I was born in Germany during the Cold War. My dad served in the Cold War. 15 year he was in the army, the Royal Signal Corps, and he took to drink in a big way, and it put me off from joining up, seeing how my dad changed as a person. It was
Yeah.
only as I got into later in life, around my forties, where I started regretting not joining up and wish I'd done that. And I lost my dad in 2012 through alcoholism, and lost my sister a few years later through the same thing. She was just like my dad. So part of me is really glad I didn't do that. Because I didn't want to follow them sort of footsteps. It were self-ruin, and but to me, my dad was my hero, and seeing him in the army was absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. Well, my dad was my hero too, even though we as I got older, we butted heads and we we argued and fought a lot. He didn't like what I he didn't like the decisions I made in my life as an adult, and it caused a lot of friction with with my father and I. But I still, he passed away about 12 years ago. Um, but I still consider him my hero, even though he didn't like the things I did, and I didn't like the way he uh, reacted towards the things that I wanted to do in my life. Hey, he was still a great man. He was a great patriot. He was a great Navy officer. Yeah, sometimes he was a little difficult and a pain in the ass to deal with, but hey, he was still my hero when I was growing up, and I'll say that till the day I die.
Got something in my cabinet. Oh, it's falling down so you can't see it. I don't break things. I've got
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, but this is the United States Air Force one. I'm sorry, it's not United States Navy.
Well, how did you end up with an Air Force flag then?
It was from
He
a
was in the British Army. He was in the British Army.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's from the RAF base in the UK, RAF Mildenhall, where the
Okay.
United States Air Force are based, and it was flown on one of their tankers refueling B-52 bombers as they were flying around the Ukraine, sort of saber rattling to Russia. And I was able to purchase it with a photograph signed by all the crews. So
Oh, okay.
it's pride of place in my house with the photograph.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean the sacrifices that these people make, and my dad, like during the Vietnam War, he was gone a lot for almost two
Yeah.
years, deployed on an aircraft carrier that was launching airstrikes against North Vietnamese targets, and he was gone for a lot of time, 66 to 68. So, a lot of people don't understand and respect that. I think you have to either be like you or I, the child of seeing their parent go through that, or the person themselves going through it to totally understand it. I don't think either if you're somebody who's never been in those shoes doesn't quite get the sacrifices that the military people make, and sometimes they pay the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah.
Definitely. So it's a pity that you're not going to be touring because I think I could talk to you for a long time, especially on this sort of matter. We've definitely got some common ground. Part of me is gutted you're not David Starr, the wrestler.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that guy until I started when these interviews started posting uh, for the new track, Not Dead Yet. I didn't know about this blues guitar player and I didn't know about the wrestler. So
Yeah,
now I know. So yeah, cool. But yeah, I'm just the old metal guy
the old
trying to
metal
trying
guy.
to trying to keep fighting to stay alive.
Yeah, with better hair than me, which is really bad.
But you definitely scared me when we started this. I was like, wait a minute, what? I thought you were joking at first, like blues. I'm thinking, where do we get our wires crossed here? What is going on?
Well, I'm really glad.
Yeah,
As much as I do like blues, I grew up listening to blues, but I'm
yeah,
really glad it's a metalhead that I'm talking to. So
yeah, yeah. That's me. But yeah, it's okay. I sort of played along with it because I wasn't really sure what was going on, and yeah, it was awkward for both of us, but that's okay.
well, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Good luck with the single. We have a charity music festival in our town for Parkinson's because of the gentleman I was talking about, David Hewitt, who was in Stormwatch and he was in Witchfind, which are local bands to Chesterfield. Witchfind was a new wave of British heavy metal band,
Yeah,
and he also made medieval weaponry and armor with his White Rose Armory, and some of his stuff is actually displayed in museums. He was a brilliant craftsman, and we sadly lost him a couple of years ago. So we have a music festival to raise money for Parkinson's every year.
great.
So it is something I'm very familiar with, and so I really wish you good luck with your future journey and your single and your health.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just hanging in there, just like I said, I get up every day with a smile on my face and staying positive. And no matter what happens, I'm gonna, try to stay the same no matter what happens. But right now, it's like uh, it's when you go through things like this, it makes you take a step back and reevaluate things,
Yeah,
things that you maybe take for granted that you don't take
definitely.
for granted anymore, and you appreciate things more. So, it's life is a never-ending journey and a learning experience, and that continues today for me in this
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
And it is what it is. It's okay. I mean, I don't. Nobody likes having things like this happen to them, but but you can either roll with it and stay positive, or you can let it consume you and
yeah,
drag you down. And I refuse to do that. I'm trying to stay as positive and upbeat and productive as I can, and that's really an important message for anybody out there, no matter what they're facing when they're facing adversity. Is you got to stay busy and positive and focused, and
yeah,
it's really healthy for you to do that.
yeah.
So
Well, thank you very much for your time and your understanding at the beginning, and I really appreciate it.
it's okay. It's all right. Yeah, I appreciate you talking, man. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. So thank you very much, and hopefully, talk in the future.